Hey everybody, it's Michael from DC Hidden Gems, and I'm here with another episode of Villa V Vibes. Thanks so much for joining me today. We've gotten really nice feedback on this format, so we're continuing it as an addition to, not instead of, our regular travel videos. Many of you have mentioned, hey, we really want to see the travel, and that's what we're excited about. And we hear you, that's what we love too. So you can make sure that we are going to continue developing and sharing all our travel adventures. We just throw this in as an extra something that lets us communicate with you and frankly get a lot of the questions and comments answered out there. We're going to get into the personal update. On the ship, a lot of the residents actually participate in, coordinate, and deliver some of the entertainment. And this past week, a good friend of ours actually delivered a discussion and shared music from Pat Metheny. It's an artist that he's crazy about, and talked about all things jazz and what it means to him and what it has meant to him. We thoroughly enjoyed it. So what happens is residents get together for this thing called the Speaker's Corner, which is resident driven. Different residents on board talk about anything that they want to talk about. We gather together and then we basically share, and it's been really going well. There's been many of them so far, and of course the topics are as varied as the individuals on board. And it's such a neat way to get to learn something new, but also get to know fellow residents and what they're passionate about. The other thing I wanted to share on the personal update is what we're reading, and we're reading Outlive. It's New York Times bestseller. I'm actually reading it on Audible, which I really like. It's by Peter Attia. It's basically about what he calls medicine of the future. And it goes from mental health to physical health to being preventative versus just reactive on diseases, to a litany of other things like tests that you can now take that show markers for different things that let you kind of get on the front end of things. But his whole perspective is about kind of taking a proactive approach to your health, all things health. And it's backed up with science. He's a medical doctor. He's got a lot of people that follow him and a very interesting approach. It's a big, thick book, but we're thoroughly loving it and we're getting a lot out of it. On the travel well section, this is a new section we just started last week where we basically just share stuff that's working for us. One of the things that we've clearly been challenged with, especially on Villa V, is transitioning our cell service to US Mobile. There are a variety of carriers out there. We were T-Mobile for a long time after we retired, but T-Mobile has rules, like many companies do, about being away from the US for an extended amount of time. And I actually got a message a while back when we were in Mexico that says, hey, if you don't get back to the US soon, we're cutting off your service, because their terms and conditions clearly state that you're not supposed to be out of the country, I think for more than 90 days or something like that, taking advantage of their international plans. So we're going to be gone a lot, and we've transitioned over to US Mobile. It's a reseller of other services like AT&T, Verizon, and even T-Mobile, but it works on eSIMs. It's a SIM card on your phone that's electronic that activates service in different countries. It's working for us, so that's good. The other thing we've learned is it only comes with data caps, certain amount of data, so we also use another eSIM company called Airalo. There's many out there, but this one we bought kind of is for many countries globally, and we use it as a backup if we're out of data or choose not to or can't use our primary eSIM through US Mobile. So our big celebration is we think we've figured out eSIMs. These are not sponsorships for us, but it's us sharing kind of what's working for us and the celebration that we actually got it going. On the Villa V update this week, we're going to talk about something interesting, and Lisa Viviano actually sent us a comment and said, my choice would be to take segments on world cruises, but not purchase a room on Villa V. And so she's bringing up world cruises, which is something that Chris and I actually are pretty familiar with. We explored a lot before finding Villa V, and this got us to thinking about things. And we were just talking about this, and out came an announcement actually on a cruise company that we love and sailed a lot. Azamara. And Azamara just announced kind of their longest ever world cruise for 2027. And so we thought today we would take a few minutes, and though it's definitely not an apples to apples comparison, kind of think about from our perspective and from the facts that we have, what would it be like kind of comparing an Azamara world cruise, a company that we love, compared to, of course, Villa V, where we've chosen to purchase and, of course, stay for a while. So that's what we're going to do today. On the basics, in terms of the kind of the offer, as you know, Villa V is on a kind of a continual world cruise, and their first one is over 3 years. It's over 1,100 nights. We live on board, depending on how you choose to purchase your cabin. You may, if you own the cabin, decorate it and do different things, but you can also rent, or you can also take segments or a variety of other programs. But essentially, Villa V is an ongoing circumnavigation about every 3 years of the world, and that's very different from a commercial cruise company. Azamara is a world cruise that starts in 2027. They're, of course, a commercial cruise company that's been around a while. They did change hands a few years back from Royal Caribbean. They're now private equity owned. But this particular cruise that I'm comparing to at this point is the one just announced for 2027. It's 188 nights. It's 103 destinations with 5 continents and 37 countries. So that's what we're talking about here. And we'll get into a little more detail, but that's a lay of the land. In terms of cost, obviously, these are very different animals here. So what we tried to do was find the closest comparison that we could. This is definitely, we acknowledge, not an exact apples to apples. Villa V does not have the same 188-day itinerary that the Azamara cruise entails. So because of that, we're trying to kind of give you the best comparison we can. First of all, Villa V is a residential cruise line. Of course, you own and you have a subscription to unlimited travel depending on the duration and what you buy with Villa V. If you rent on Villa V, then you pick what they call a segment. A segment is a piece of the world cruise that goes around every 3 years. But after you choose your segment, in other words, you want to go to these locations on those dates, then you have to pick your cabin. Smaller cabins are less expensive than larger cabins, and of course, 1 or 2 people in the room and things like location on the cabin and of course duration of the cruise drive cost. So we went and looked at the Azamara website, and we looked at, for Villa V, the North and South Asia segments. So that is what I am using for this comparison. You could buy those 2 segments and get 181 days. Azamara is 188 days, and we'll get into cost per day and that kind of stuff in a minute. But if you chose the North and South Asia segments, and we chose an inside cabin with current pricing on deck 4 for 2 people, for those 181 days on a segment, you'd pay around $54,000. For 2 people, that's $298 per day. Remember, prices change based on what you do, and if you need specific information, we are not quoting that here. You need to go to the Villa V website and talk to the folks there. But for comparison purposes and for today, that's what I'm talking about. Now, Azamara is more clear-cut. It's a commercial cruise line. It's 188 days. It is what it is. You either buy this itinerary, and of course, based on the room you choose, or you don't. But the cheapest interior cabin on their website today for 2 people, an inside cabin, is around $101,000 for the 188 days, or $538 per day. So on a per day basis, for inside cabins, lowest you can go for 2 people, $538 a day for Azamara versus $298 a day for Villa V. Now, there's a lot more to the comparison than cost. Now, what's included is different between the 2 as well. For Villa V, of course, gratuities and fees are included. We do have high-speed internet, works pretty well. Housekeeping service twice a week, just twice a week. Laundry twice a week. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are included. Complimentary wine and beer at meals only, no hard alcohol, and nothing outside of meals is included. We do have a fitness center, wellness classes, some entertainment, not a lot. And then we have other details that you can look at the website on. Now, Azamara, we've sailed Azamara and they're great. So actually more is included on Azamara. Gratuities and fees are included. They do have high-speed internet included. We've used it, it's pretty good. They've recently made some changes that I think make the included internet better. Housekeeping service daily. So on Azamara, they come and clean your room every day. So it's 2 times a week on Villa V, every day on Azamara. Laundry once a week. You get an upgrade for this cruise to their premium beverage package, which means you get alcohol in the bars however you want it within a certain list of liquors. I don't think it includes everything, but almost anything. And of course, that's in addition to wine and beer and other things in the meal. So there's definitely more alcohol included and cocktails and all the things that are not included on Villa V. They do have fitness center wellness classes. They have some onboard credits that they included for things like shore excursions or going to the shop or that kind of thing that are included in their offer. There is other stuff that you can look at their website and look at the details. So on stuff that's included, Villa V doesn't come in as strong as Azamara. Azamara comes in stronger, things like alcohol, daily cleaning, and that kind of thing. Now, you're comparing a residential cruise to a commercial cruise, and those are different kind of offers. So Azamara does have more in terms of the inclusions. Not necessarily a lot more, not necessarily things I care as much about and clearly don't want to pay for every day. But when I was on Azamara, I enjoyed that drink package. I enjoyed my daily housekeeping and other things. So it's definitely a nice package and it's nice to have. The Villa V ship, the Odyssey, was built in '93. It's 32 years old, 195 meters, width is 23, up to 650 residents. Of course, we got half of that right now because we're still building up, but 650 capacity. It was refurbished in 2019 as the Braemar, and as you know, many of you may have heard the story about how it was laid up after COVID and then refurbished. It's got the ability, if you buy your cabin, to refurbish the room as you want, decorate, that kind of thing. And, you know, that's part of the unique kind of offer for the Villa V ship. Azamara, the ship was built in 2000, so it's 25 years old. It's 181 meters in length and width is 25, up to 702. So it's not that different in terms of the capacity of the ship. It was refurbished in 2024, so it's fresh. It's got some really nice finishes and things, even though the ship is quite a bit older. And, you know, there's no question that I think as far as aesthetics and just the vibe and the feel and just the refinement of the ship, the Azamara ship wins. I'm still okay with Villa V, but there's no doubt, like I've said about Viking as well as Azamara, Azamara is just a nicer ship. It's finished nicer. For Tenure and Reputation, Villa V is a new company. We've talked ad nauseum about that. It only launched relatively recently. There's been some bumps. There's all the things that we've talked about prior that I am not talking about today. It's a startup company. They're still finding their footing. There's a lot of things that are still being shaken out. You've got a variety of ways to engage with Villa V. You can do long-term like we did, which is clearly more risk. You can do other programs that have different risk levels and different cost levels, and then you can just rent, like the comparison I'm doing now, where, you know, the maximum commitment you've got is for the duration of whatever cruise you chose to rent, and then you can walk away or do whatever you want to do. Clearly, the delays and the things that have happened in the past that we've talked about has got folks a little concerned. There's a little more tentative nature around decisions here. That's understandable. It's clearly not for everybody anyway. And then you layer on top of that things like some of the uncertainty, and it definitely comes with more of a risk in terms of, you know, am I comfortable doing that? What if? Then you probably would see on Azamara, which has been around a while. We have been at sea over 100 days. Things are going well. There's still a lot of things to be done, but there's a lot of happy people on this ship. Azamara, on the other hand, it's one of the smallest cruise lines. It's private equity held, so they do have dollars. They do have experience running business, and they've been doing this a while. They've got 4 ships in the fleet. They're kind of the more luxury end. They're not way up there like Regent and Silversea and some of the other ones that are a little more refined with butler colors and tees and that kind of stuff. We didn't frankly want that. We really liked the kind of casual, kind of country club vibe that Azamara had. And it was very comfortable, and we liked it. We loved their aesthetic. We loved the way they do things. We loved their crew and so many things. So Azamara, in terms of kind of the company, probably edges out Villa V because they're a startup. Now, we're so glad that we're still here, but you just have to be objective about it. Azamara's been running longer. They're a commercial cruise line. They've got other ships, and they've got a lot of experience in doing things. Now, I will tell you this. As Azamara customers, when Azamara pulled away from Royal Caribbean to the new company, it was awful. There were systems issues. There were things falling out of the system. There were people furious. You'd call the call center and it was hours of waiting. I personally did it. My travel agent lost reservations. They had a big protracted systems discussion for months. And kind of like a startup would when they're pulling away from a mothership systems on Royal Caribbean. So even Azamara, they had a lot of challenges. They've gotten through that. We all loved them through it, but it was difficult. So it was interesting to me as I thought about this to think even Azamara, with me as a customer, kind of dealt with some of this startup stuff that we've dealt with here. Different issues, but similar in terms of some of the challenges. In terms of the itinerary, Villa V has a lot of overnight stays. The North and South Asia itineraries alone are something like 150 overnight stays and several 2 to 5 night stays out of the 181 nights. Fewer sea days, lots of hidden gem ports, which is of course what we like, stuff that you don't necessarily think about going to. On Azamara, Azamara really does have a reputation and does deliver on longer stays in ports. They actually, I think they rule there personally, and I think the facts back that up. They are known for overnight stays, longer stays, not just going in and out and checking a box, and I think they do that pretty well for a commercial cruise line. However, when you look at this itinerary, there's only 15 overnight stays in the 188 days, 188 nights, and shorter visits overall. They are just covering way more real estate in 188 days. You'll recall that I'm talking about North and South Asia compared to, their full world cruise. This cruise also does not go to South America or Africa. So even though it's called a world cruise, it does not include South America or Africa. For Villa V, it has 13 Japan ports, 11 overnights, and a 4-night in Tokyo and a 2-night in Kobe. So when you look at this specific focus on Japan, on Azamara, 8 Japan ports and 2 overnight stays. So, when we think about Japan and we think about the experience we're getting, obviously we're a lot more excited about the duration and the type of ports that we're going to on Villa V, even though it's a nice itinerary, although an abbreviated one compared to Villa V when you look at Azamara. In terms of community, Villa V is a residential cruise line. There's people on here of different residential types, but they stay here like we do, right? They may own, they may rent, they may be friends and family, they may be on different programs, but they tend to be here and be here longer for many, many, many months, years, that kind of thing. There is a community of people here. With that comes all the good and sometimes the challenge of community, but it's a real community, and we kind of like that. On Azamara, you're really not looking for community. These world cruises are basically strung together back-to-back cruises. So it's not like the entire ship is a world cruise. There is a subset of the people on the ship that will be on the world cruise, which is a summing together of many shorter cruises. So you're going to see people come and go off those shorter cruises. They're really not going for community. People are beautiful there. We have met some wonderful friends that we still have on Azamara, but it's a commercial cruise with what goes with that. We think Villa V kind of wins on that one, but that's obviously we're sitting here and that's something that we believe is important as we look at this. So for the final verdict, As you can see, based on all the above and the best comparison we could do, we've already made our choice. We're clearly not going to continue our Villa V investment and then go on an Azamara cruise right now. But if we weren't, I'd already be booked on the Azamara cruise. So I clearly am an Azamara fan. I like, and I know Chris does too, what they offer, their itinerary and all the things we've already said. We're here on Villa V. We've made our choice. Different people have different ways and preferences of traveling. Clearly, if you weren't as, experienced and didn't know what you're wanting to do, it's clearly best to try something out before you just buy it. I would even say that on a world cruise, 188 days is a long time to be gone if you don't know you're going to want to be there. So it's a different investment. It's a different way of being. It's a whole different thing. But I will tell you, we've chosen Villa V because it gives us more Japan in the example I just said, but it also lets us kind of do all the things that we've talked about. That's our comparison. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we appreciate it. In terms of what's next, the Odyssey has made it around Cape Horn. We had done that a couple of times, and it's so interesting to do. Of course, it's very choppy if you know kind of what you're dealing with there, but we love that. We were headed to the Falkland Islands, but because of weather there and seas, it looks like that's going to change. That was the captain's call, not any kind of call from the company, because we were going to have to tender at the Falkland Islands, and there was a lot of concern about the tenders being safe back and forth because of the weather and the seas. So we're going to spend some extra time in Ushuaia and do that instead of heading to the storm. We've completed the western part of South America, and now we're going up the eastern half, and we're looking so forward to that. We're really excited to be back in Argentina. Chris and I have been here a few times, and we just loved it. We're looking to go do things that we've done before, but also a lot that we haven't. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you. And we also have a really kind of cool video coming soon. You've asked for it, and it's the Villa V food edition. So it actually goes into kind of the food and what we eat and some special occasions and that kind of thing. So click on notification if you want to see that. And as always, thank you for being here, and let us know what you like and don't in the comments. And with that, I'm going to say another episode of Villa V Vibes is Villa V out.